That's how it began, between words too quiet for anyone else to hear, in a room that suddenly felt smaller than it was. She wasn't just my friend's mom. She was the kind of woman whose presence rewrote the air around her. Every gesture of hers was deliberate, and yet I caught the slips, the moments when her confidence cracked into silence, when her eyes lingered on me a fraction too long. She stood by the counter, her fingers tracing the rim of a glass she hadn't touched. I sat close enough to notice the faint tremor in her hand when she set it down. "Your friend will be late," she said, almost casual, but the way her shoulders stiffened gave her away. I nodded, maybe too slowly. I should have looked away. I didn't. It wasn't that she was perfect, far from it. The faint tiredness under her eyes, the half-smile that seemed to apologize before it landed, the way she adjusted her sleeve as though hiding something invisible. She carried regret like perfume, subtle but impossible to ignore. And me? I couldn't stop watching her. Every small detail seemed to burn itself into me, the shine of her hair caught in the low light, the rhythm of her breathing when the silence dragged on too long. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said, finally turning. I almost laughed, though nothing was funny. "Like what?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She shook her head, brushing past me toward the table. The faint scent of her perfume, warm, almost sweet, stayed behind, as if daring me to follow. My fingers twitched against my leg. I wanted to reach for her, but I didn't. Instead, I let my eyes fall to the floor, pretending not to notice the way her hand brushed against mine as she set something down between us. It could have been an accident. It wasn't. The room grew heavier, as though walls had leaned closer. Outside, the faint hum of traffic blurred into nothing. Inside, it was just the rhythm of breath, the accidental closeness, the pull either of us wanted to name. "Don't say anything," she whispered, though I hadn't spoken. The words pressed into me harder than any touch. I leaned back, but my voice betrayed me with a low reply. "Then don't give me reasons to." For the first time, she laughed, soft, nervous, breaking in the middle. She pressed her palm against her cheek as though to cool herself. But when her eyes returned to mine, there was no retreat left in them. Just a question she wasn't willing to ask. I swallowed. "This doesn't leave here." Her answer came almost too quickly. "It can't." The silence after was unbearable. My hand, reckless, moved closer to hers until my thumb grazed the back of it. Her breath caught, sharp, small, like something breaking free. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand over, slow and deliberate, her fingers brushing against mine, resting there as if they had always belonged. My chest tightened. Every second felt like trespassing, like claiming something I had no right to. Her gaze lowered, then lifted, heavy and unguarded. "This is our secret." My reply came out rougher than I intended. "Then let me mark you where no one sees." Her lips parted in shock, or maybe in invitation. But before she could answer, the sharp sound of a door unlocking echoed from the front hall. We froze. Her hand snapped back. My pulse thundered as her eyes widened, darting toward the sound. The world outside rushed in again, the muffled voices, the creak of the hinges, and in that suspended moment, the secret we hadn't spoken balanced on the edge of discovery. The sound of the front door closing had faded, but the silence it left behind stayed jagged between us. She moved quickly, fussing with the books on the table, adjusting what didn't need adjusting. Her face had smoothed into composure, but her fingers betrayed her, tapping too fast, lingering too long. I sat back, trying to slow my breathing, but every beat of my pulse reminded me how close I had come to losing myself. "You're reckless," she murmured finally, not looking at me. "Or honest," I answered. That earned me a glance, sharp but softened at the edges. Her lips pressed together, holding back something she wouldn't name. It wasn't the first time we'd been caught in these silences. There had been others, small ones. The night she asked if I'd ever been in love. The morning her coffee cup brushed against mine and neither of us moved it. But tonight, the air felt different. Heavy. "You're too young," she said suddenly, as if to remind herself. I'm not a child. That's not the same thing. Her voice dipped lower, more fragile than I'd ever heard. She turned away, leaning against the counter. For the first time, she looked less like the confident woman I'd always known and more like someone carrying weight she couldn't set down. You think I don't see it? I asked, quieter. The way you hide. The way you keep everyone at arm's length. Her laugh was faint, brittle. You don't know me. Then let me. The words slipped out before I could stop them. She flinched, not from anger, but from recognition. For a heartbeat, I saw the truth in her eyes, the loneliness she wore like an invisible veil. I had a marriage once, she said finally, almost to herself. 15 years of trying to be enough. By the end, we couldn't even sit at the same table. Silence was easier. I didn't move, afraid she would stop. Since then, I've managed. That's all. Managed. Her hands tightened around the edge of the counter. And now you're here, looking at me like. She cut herself off, shaking her head. Like what? I pressed, my voice softer now. Her eyes flicked to mine, lingering too long, too heavy. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The space between us folded in without warning. She stepped closer, not enough to close the distance, but enough that I could feel the warmth of her body, the faint brush of her breath near my cheek. My chest rose and fell too quickly. Her hand lifted, almost hesitantly, and rested on my shoulder. It wasn't a full touch, just her fingers grazing lightly, as though testing the ground beneath her. My skin burned beneath the contact. I wanted to reach up, hold her hand there, anchor her to me. But she withdrew before I could move. Still, the electricity lingered, humming in the narrow space we shared. Her voice broke the silence, softer now. You should go. I didn't. And she didn't ask again. The living room lamp buzzed faintly, throwing a dim circle of light across the floor. She sat on the couch, one leg tucked beneath her, the other foot tapping in restless rhythm. I lowered myself into the chair opposite, though it felt like every nerve in me wanted to sit beside her. Her phone lit up on the table between us. A message. She glanced at it, then quickly flipped it over so the screen faced down. The movement was sharp, almost guilty. You don't have to hide that, I said quietly. Her eyes cut to mine. Don't I? I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. What are you afraid they'll see? The silence after felt dangerous. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. Instead, her gaze drifted to the space between us, the table, the phone, the line we hadn't crossed but circled endlessly. The front door creaked suddenly. My chest seized. But it was only the wind tugging against loose hinges. She exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to her chest. You're reckless, she whispered again, though this time it sounded less like accusation and more like surrender. I rose without thinking, drawn toward her like a tide I couldn't fight. She stayed still, watching me come closer, her breath shallow, her hands tense against her knees. I stopped just short of the couch, the air between us buzzing. You want me to leave? I murmured. Her throat worked as she swallowed. I should. But you won't. A silence. Then, barely audible. No. I lowered myself beside her. The cushion dipped, pulling us a fraction closer than either of us intended. She shifted, but not away. Her shoulder brushed mine, her warmth seeping through the fabric of my sleeve. My hand twitched against my thigh, aching to move, to close the last bit of distance. Her breath caught. She tilted her head, almost toward me. My eyes dropped to her lips, just once, before I forced them back to hers. It would have been easy, too easy, to lean in, to claim what we both felt. But something stopped me. The weight of it all. Her son, my friend. The whispers that would follow if anyone saw. People would never understand, she said suddenly, as if reading my thoughts. They don't need to. Her laugh was quiet, breaking halfway. Spoken like someone who hasn't lived long enough to know better. I didn't argue. Instead, I lifted my hand, slow, deliberate, and let my fingers brush against hers on the couch. The contact was electric, her hand trembling faintly beneath mine, but she didn't pull away. Her eyes flicked down, then back up. For a heartbeat, we leaned toward each other. Close enough to feel the warmth of her breath, the faint sweetness of it teasing the space between us. But just as I moved a fraction closer, her phone buzzed again, sharp, jarring. She flinched, pulling her hand free. We both froze, staring at the glowing screen, then at each other. Either of us spoke. Yet when I shifted closer, so close my knee touched hers, she didn't move away. And in that fragile space, balanced between fear and desire, we sat, unable to step back. The house had grown too quiet, the kind of silence that demanded an answer. She sat angled away from me on the couch, but I could see the tightness in her shoulders, the way her fingers knotted in the fabric of her skirt. I shifted closer, unable to stop myself. The cushion dipped, and she stiffened. "You can't keep looking at me like this," she whispered, her voice thin. "I don't know how else to look at you." Her breath caught, shaky, betraying more than she wanted. She turned, finally, and our eyes met. There was no retreat left in her gaze, only the weight of everything we hadn't said. "You'll ruin me," she said. "No," I murmured, leaning closer. "I'll ruin myself before I ever ruin you." Her hand lifted halfway, as though to stop me, but instead her fingers brushed against my chest, lingering just over my heart. The warmth of her touch spread like fire under my skin. "Do you even understand what this would mean?" she asked, her tone breaking between warning and plea. I nodded. "Yes. And I still want you." Her eyes fluttered shut for a moment, her lips parting as though the words themselves hurt. When they opened again, she looked raw, stripped of every mask. "You remind me of everything I never had," she confessed, voice trembling. "And everything I'm not supposed to want." The air thickened. My hand lifted without thought, brushing a loose strand of hair back from her face. My fingers grazed her temple, then lingered at the curve of her cheek. She leaned into it, just slightly, like her body betrayed her before her mind could stop her. I leaned closer, close enough that my voice was a low hum near her ear. "Then want it anyway." She shivered, her breath brushing across my jaw. My hand slid to the back of her neck, slow, careful, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers tightened against my chest. Her forehead pressed lightly to mine. Our breaths tangled, fast, uneven. The space between us felt unbearable. Her whisper trembled. "We can't." My reply came out rough, unsteady. "Then why can't I stop?" For a long moment, neither of us moved. The world shrank to the rhythm of her breathing, the soft press of her body leaning against mine, the heat that surged in every inch of space we hadn't yet crossed. My lips hovered a breath from hers, so close I could taste the electricity of it. Her eyes flicked down, then up again, wide and vulnerable. "I should go," she said, though she made no effort to move. "You won't," I whispered. Her hand slid up, curling against the back of my neck, pulling me closer. Our mouths nearly met, so close the line blurred, so close the air itself held its breath. And then, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. We froze, caught on the edge of a kiss that would change everything. The footsteps faded, a door shut somewhere down the hall, and silence crept back in. She pulled away first, her hand slipping from my neck as if it burned her. I sat frozen, every nerve screaming to reach for her again, but the distance between us felt suddenly dangerous. She rose from the couch, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. I watched her pace, back and forth, like the room itself had grown too small. "I can't do this," she said, almost to herself. "You already are." Her head snapped toward me, her eyes shining, not with anger, but with something sharper. "You don't understand. If anyone ever—" Her voice trailed off, breaking. I stood slowly. "Tell me." Her lips pressed into a line, holding words hostage, but then she exhaled as though the truth forced its way out. "He knows," she whispered. My chest tightened. "Who?" "My son." Her voice cracked on the word. "Your friend. He asked me last week why I smiled when you came around. He noticed I couldn't hide it." The floor tilted beneath me. My pulse hammered in my ears. I tried to form a reply, but nothing came. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. I told him it was nothing. That I was imagining it. But he didn't believe me. She shook her head, eyes closing. And now, sitting here with you, he was right. The confession hit like a blow and a gift at once. The secret was heavier now, sharper. But it was also undeniable. I crossed the room before I thought better of it. She flinched, not from fear, but from the closeness. My hand hovered near her arm, not touching, though every instinct begged me to. You should hate me, I said, my voice low. She opened her eyes, meeting mine. I should. Her throat tightened as she swallowed. But I don't. The words hung between us, heavier than any kiss could have been. I stepped closer, so near her shoulder brushed against my chest. She didn't move away. Her breath shook, quick, uneven, her body trembling though her face tried to stay composed. This isn't safe, she whispered, her lips brushing the air between us. No, I admitted. But it's real. Her fingers twitched against the table, then slid back until they brushed mine. The contact was faint, accidental in appearance, but deliberate in truth. Heat surged through me at the smallest touch. She drew in a sharp breath, then let it out slow, as though deciding something. Finally, she turned her hand over, palm against mine, pressing into it fully. Her eyes locked on mine, unflinching. This is the last time I'll tell you to walk away, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I squeezed her hand gently, leaning in so close I felt the tremor of her breath on my lips. Then stop asking. The room seemed to shrink around us, every shadow leaning closer, every silence pressing heavier. Her hand remained in mine, her pulse thrumming against my palm like a secret begging to be confessed. You don't know what you're asking, she said, but the strength in her voice faltered. I'm asking for you, I whispered. Her lips parted, trembling with words she couldn't find. She stepped back, only to bump against the edge of the table. Trapped, not by me, but by her own wavering resolve. You'll regret this, she breathed. I shook my head. The only regret would be leaving now. For a moment neither of us moved. The weight of her gaze locked me still, but her body betrayed her. The way her shoulders rose with shallow breaths, the way she tilted toward me without realizing, the way her hand refused to let go of mine. I lifted my free hand, slow, deliberate, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. My fingers lingered, tracing the warmth of her skin. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch as though it undid her. You're too young, she whispered again, softer this time, the words breaking. I leaned closer, my forehead nearly touching hers. And you're too beautiful for me to pretend I don't see you. Her laugh came out shaky, almost a sob. She gripped my shirt, the fabric tightening between her trembling fingers. The movement pulled me closer, until her body was pressed lightly to mine, her breath mingling with mine in ragged bursts. This can't be undone, she said, her voice shaking. Then let's not undo it. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the rhythm of our breathing, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the wild pounding in my chest. I leaned in, hesitating just long enough for her to stop me. She didn't. Instead, her hand slid up to the back of my neck, pulling me the last inch closer. Our lips met, soft at first, hesitant, then deepening with the weight of everything we had denied. It wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, it was raw, desperate, human. Her body trembled against mine, and I held her tighter, as if anchoring both of us in the storm we had unleashed. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads remained pressed together. Her eyes searched mine, wide and wet, but no longer hiding. This is madness, she whispered. Maybe, I said, my voice rough. But it's ours. Her hand stayed tangled in my shirt, refusing to release me. She exhaled, slow, as though surrender had finally replaced resistance. For the first time, she didn't tell me to go. She didn't remind me of the risks. She only stayed close, her breath warming my skin, her silence heavy with everything she now understood. We weren't safe. We weren't careful. But we were no longer pretending. The kiss had left the room charged, the silence after it fuller than any words could have been. She still held on to me, her hand twisted lightly in my shirt as if letting go would unravel everything we'd just admitted. I could feel the tremor in her body, not fear exactly, but the weight of all the risks pressing down at once. "We can't go back," she whispered, her forehead leaning against mine. "I don't want to," I answered. She drew in a shaky breath, her fingers finally loosening, then sliding down to find my hand. For a moment she just held it, tracing absent lines across my palm with her thumb. It was such a small thing, but it carried more certainty than anything else we'd shared. "I'm not blind," she said quietly. "The age, the gossip, what it could mean for you. For me." Her voice faltered, then steadied again. "But I'm so tired of living carefully." Her admission hit me harder than any warning she'd ever given. I tightened my grip around her hand, grounding her, grounding myself. "Then don't," I murmured. Her eyes lifted to mine, searching for hesitation. Finding none, she softened, her shoulders relaxing, the fight in her gaze giving way to something gentler. She leaned against me then, her head resting on my chest, her body fitting into mine with a relief that felt inevitable. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her closer. The warmth of her weight against me settled everything, the doubts, the fears, the endless circling. For the first time, it didn't feel like trespassing. It felt like home. We stayed like that for a long time. No words, no rush. Just the quiet hum of the house, and the steady rhythm of her breathing against me. I pressed a soft kiss to the top of her head, my lips brushing her hair, and felt her smile against my chest. "This is madness," she whispered again, but this time her tone was lighter, almost playful. I smiled too, my voice low. "Then let's be mad together." Her fingers tightened around mine, weaving between them, locking us in a hold that was both fragile and unbreakable. It wasn't a grand declaration, not a promise of forever, but it was enough. Enough for tonight. Enough to know that neither of us was walking away. When she finally pulled back to look at me, her eyes were soft, unguarded in a way I had never seen before. She leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss against my forehead, lingering there, as though sealing a truth between us. "We'll figure it out," she said simply. And for the first time, I believed her.